Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Welcome to Plathville. As I always say, everything that I'm reacting to, everything that I'm saying, you have to take with a grain of salt because I don't really know these people, and I'm just reacting to what the show is choosing to show me. I use this reaction video series as a way of using it as a jumping off point to talk about things that I think other people might benefit from hearing about. So just always keep that in mind, that if I actually met these people clinically, I would have a much more in-depth and more accurate idea of these people. And let's get to the show.
He was 17 months old.
Joshua died, and it wasn't an accident, it was just a terrible accident.
It was a normal day, and we were doing some yard work. I pulled a vehicle forward. I had just seen him, so I thought I was okay, but I pulled forward and I ran over him.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is rough. So sad. 17 months. So sad.
The lady came, she took him to the ambulance, and she came back and she said, "I'm sorry." I can tell you that those next 6 or 8 months of my life were hell on earth. And I was dealing with losing a son. He was dealing with losing a son and a wife because I wasn't there.
Wow. That is very tragic. I'm so sad for them. I mean, that is, to lose a child, 1, and then 2, to have it be an accident like that. That is just awful. Now, I will say that in this moment, we see that the two of them are able to talk about it. They are supporting each other. So we see a lot of strengths as they move through this. So, and the fact that the family's still together, resilient, adaptable. But yeah, what a tragedy, just so awful.
We got through that together as a family. And that's why, it hurts to have this fracture in the family right now. It's rough. We're having a lot of issues.
All right, so she is making a parallel between losing her child in a tragic fashion like that with the current transition, the word I would use is transition, that the family is going through. What she is saying is there's a rift in the family. You hear her narrative of it, where they had this beautiful family and they had a very clear boundary around the family. And then Ethan gets married to Olivia. And from their story, Olivia was really influencing things. I would say probably not a lot, but at least a little bit. And the mother saw that as a threat. I think the mother, I'm always looking at my genogram with my notes because there's just so many things here. She talked about how she was neglected as a child. She was an only child, and that her father was abusive, mother was alcoholic, single mom. And so one could imagine that for Kim, she has a lot of knowledge about what a family looks like when it flies apart or when it has problems. And she created a very careful, very controlled environment, a very good environment from the looks of it for these children. At least thus far, it looks like it's, at least on the healthy side of the spectrum. There are seemingly some issues, but nothing like what we would imagine to be at the other end of the spectrum. But so then the addition of the child dying, it's another reason to double down on building up those walls and trying to keep things the same. The problem is the kids are going to grow up and they're going to live their own lives. And it's not likely that they're going to live a life the way they are because it's really quite extreme. To create a life like this family, you have to do a lot to protect your family from the outside world. And it's just likely that at least some of the kids are going to want to not live that lifestyle. And that's always going to be more down the road of worldly, as they put it. And so the mother has this narrative of black or white, where either we are all very insular and we don't go into the outside world, and we don't interact with other people. We don't go to the city. We don't drink alcohol. We don't drink Coca-Cola. We don't have sugar. We don't have all these things. And if you're on the other side of that spectrum, or you're on the other side of that threshold, you are the other, and you are the worldly. And I'm guessing you are the sinner, or you are the at risk of things going very badly. In fact, it's inevitable that your life is going to fall apart, because I know, Kim would say, I know what it's like when people's lives fall apart, believe me, and you don't know what it's like. And so it's, the death of the child seems like maybe another reason why the mom would have an even more black or white point of view about that. Now, I will say thus far, what they've shown us is the mom, although she has some rules and some hopes for the family, she is willing to adjust. And she allowed Mariah to go to San Francisco, and, she is trying to adjust. She is, she puts a lot of emotional pressure on, it sounds like. But, a lot of parents do that for various reasons. And from the outside, you might say, like, oh, come on, Mom, lighten up. But there's some wisdom to what she has done. I mean, look how happy the kids are, how bonded they are, how healthy they are, how much they've been protected from terrible, terrible things that kids are subjected to when they're out in the world today. Not that they don't survive it, they often do, but so although it's not my lifestyle, what this family is, and the mom's rules to me seem pretty rigid, but you just have to wonder, there's probably some wisdom to it. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out.
Before Ethan and Olivia got married, the family was all on the same page. We were all in the same boat together. And now we've got a line being drawn through the middle of the family. We're not together, and it's just really, really hard.
Right. So the mom is talking matter of fact about it, that there's a line driven through the family. But I suspect, given her behavior and her past, that this is an extremely threatening notion to her. That the feelings that she has as she sees the older kids start to drift away, as the infiltrator of Olivia is pulling people away from the family. And there seems to be a pretty clear divide between the younger kids and the older kids when you think about it. I mean, it lends itself to that anyway, because you have Lydia, who is the parentified one and the very responsible one, and then you have all the younger kids, and then you have Mariah and all the older kids. And now they're trying to get Isaac to jump over Lydia and get with the older kid faction. And for the mom, it seems like for the dad, he may be a little bit more flexible on this, and it makes me wonder if this whole arrangement that they have as an insular family is mainly motivated by the mom. I don't know. But they have this change that the family is going through. The older kids are becoming independent, and that's just going to happen. And they're going to want to experiment. Maybe eventually they'll come back around and they'll want to live this lifestyle, but it's pretty common for kids to want to live on their own and see how they want to do things on their own. And the mother is having a hard time dealing with that. And so how would I, as a family therapist, help with this? Well, the first thing I would really do with the mom individually maybe is talk with her, and family therapists will work individually with people in the family. And I might ask her, well, so what's your tell me your perfect vision of the future. I'm guessing she'd say something like, well, all the kids would marry non-worldly people, they would stay close to home. I also wonder about the Hosanna. Hosanna moved to Ohio. She got married. She's the oldest sister. She got married, but she was almost perfect, they called her. But she moved to Ohio, and I wonder if the mom and the family has some loss around that, because I'm guessing they don't get to see her very often. But anyway, so I want to know what the narrative is for the mother, because sometimes, given your past, given the way that you deal with threat and danger, you can develop an extremely rigid vision of the future. And anything aside from that is a total failure and is an utter disaster by definition. And so I'd want to know that about her. Now, as a therapist, I don't tell people how to think, but I will point out that I might say, say she presents a very rigid narrative. I might say something like, well, what narrative do you think the rest of the family has? What narrative do you think that Ethan has, or that Olivia has, or that Mariah has? Maybe putting her in the other people's shoes, she might realize, oh, maybe there is another way of looking, or maybe there's multiple ways of getting to my goal. A lot of parents will suffer from the following thing. They will, deep in their bones, want their children to have a good life. Most parents want that, right? Good parents want that. They want their children to live a happy life, to be fulfilled, to have all the wonderful things, to be safe. And they want that. Of course, they want that. But they apply a very narrow storyline to the child getting those things. And when the child veers away from that storyline, they interpret it as utter danger. It's sort of like when you're raised in a particular culture, you're told what kind of food is good and what kind of food is bad. And say you go to a different culture and none of your culture's food is around, and you're really, really hungry, and you're looking at all the food in this culture and you're thinking, it's all disgusting, I don't want to eat it. And then you die of hunger because you don't want to eat that food. And the parable or the analogy or the metaphor is that for Kim, it's possible that there are other ways that she can help her kids be happy and safe that are beyond her narrow vision of what she thought would guarantee that or be the most likelihood for that. So that'd be one thing I'd want to talk about. The other thing I'd want to do as a family therapist is get Olivia and the mom in the same room, the two of them with me, because they seem to be the ringleaders of these things. And I'd want them to bond. I'd want them to understand each other. Because I think Olivia is definitely on the family side. And I don't think Olivia is a threat at all, really. And if the mom and Olivia were to work together on things, maybe there would be less conflict. But anyway, so let's see how they manage this transition in the family. Let's see how the whole family manages it. The mother is in charge of tradition and conservatism, keeping things the same, keeping things safe. She has been elected by the family and she's volunteered to be that voice for the entire family. Olivia has been elected by the family to be the voice of, well, maybe the older kids have another way of meeting their needs. Maybe there's other kinds of things here. And all the other people that are involved in how this whole family system comes together. And let's see how they work together for the purpose of everyone getting their needs met. Because everyone wants to be safe. Everyone wants to be happy. And so let's see how they work together to meet those goals.
We want to resolve things. We want to work on it. We want to restore relationships. But we're just not even sure what that path looks like. One of the things that I wanted to say to you is I do want us to work on our relationship. And so you don't have to answer right now, but be thinking about what does that look like? Like, what do you want? You know.
Awesome. 2 thumbs up. The mom is actually saying what I just said, which is great. She's like, I want to work on our relationship. I wonder what that means, but that's definitely a 2 thumbs up and a good start.
What can we do, you and I?
Maybe like starting with Isaac coming is a really good way to start working on. See, if I know you don't trust me, then it's really hard to work on that relationship. By you letting us be with Isaac, it shows that you trust us.
So, although I agree with Olivia and it makes some sense, it's a little fast. What the mom is saying, I think, is, Olivia, I want to feel like we're connected and like we understand each other before we move ahead with some of the things that you want to change about this family. And only when you and I feel like we're on the same page do I feel comfortable moving forward with this. I think that's what the mom was saying. She didn't say it explicitly, but I think it was basically in her proposal. And then Olivia says, yeah, anyway, so I want Isaac to come to the house, without saying, okay, mom, mother-in-law, yeah, let's take our time here. Let's you and I get to know each other. I wonder if Olivia doesn't want to get to know the mom, or is afraid of what might happen, or unaware of what's happening, or a little righteous. I don't know. So let's see how so the mom, you saw, she was disappointed. She's like, That's not what I was saying. I wasn't saying let's forge ahead. I was saying you and I have to have a heart-to-heart here, and then we can talk about moving forward. So let's see what the mom says.
Do you think that there might be some blind spots that you're missing?
On everyone's part. And
Oh, we all
anytime you
have
have a problem, everyone has a blind spot.
Yeah.
Dad, what do you mean by blind spot?
That was a fantastic question. I had the same question. The dad says, do you think there are any blind spots? And Olivia is just kind of going, yeah, sure. And then one of the kids is like, what do you mean by blind spots? So let's hear what he says.
Character type things that may be occurring that you don't see.
Still vague, but a little bit more clear. I think what he's talking about is if we're going to head into the world and you're going to leave the farm and you're going to create a band and you're going to go to that house, Olivia and Ethan's house, where there is Coca-Cola and root beer floats and alcohol, then that is an issue of character. That is an issue of who you are, the purity, I'm guessing the purity of who you are, or the decisions you make for not only the family, but also for God. They haven't talked a lot about the God stuff, but I'm quite sure that there's a lot of God thinking at the very least. But who knows? And within Christianity culture, in certain sects of Christianity, there's this idea of purity of the body and respecting. When you respect the body, you're respecting God. When you disrespect your body, you're disrespecting God. And so I wonder if that's what the dad is talking about.
Olivia is resentful. Olivia doesn't think she is, but yet she is. It's a character flaw that doesn't build relationships.
That's what the dad is talking about. Is there a blind spot here? And then, what do you mean, Dad? Well, character. And boy, was he being passive about that. What he was saying was, I think Olivia has anger and resentment and is bitter and is doing this out of spite, not out of caring about the family. Now, I was wondering about that too. There seemed to, as I was talking about earlier, there seemed to be a little bit of a discounting of the mom, of like, oh yeah, anyway, Mom, whatever, let's forge ahead. I know you don't want Isaac to come to my house, but I know Isaac wants to come to my house, and everyone else here wants Isaac to come to my house. So there seemed to be a bit of resentment there, which wouldn't be unusual given what we've heard about their history. So again, what I would really want is the mom and Olivia to bond and understand each other and to care about each other. From that foundation of care, they both can move forward together because they both have a lot of power. It seems actually, so family therapists, we tend to look at a lot of different angles of the family. And one of the angles we'll look at is hierarchy and boundaries. And even though you would say, well, of course, the dad and the mom are at the top of the hierarchy. But in this moment, it looks like Olivia and the mom are at the height of the hierarchy, and everyone is below. The dad is a close second. Ethan is a close second. Definitely Mariah is in there somewhere. And so what I would want, whenever I am, as a family therapist, trying to help a family, you need to have the top layer of the hierarchy, the top tier of the hierarchy. You need those individuals to be on the same page because the power structure flows from them. And so hopefully they'll have that, but I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Us four, meaning me and Ethan, Kim and Barry, are resolved. I totally understand that, but when it comes to resolving those issues, a lot of them are theological differences, or they're super conservative and we're not. And that's never going to change.
I would love for this relationship to be fixed, but that does not equal me changing as a person. And I can't change who I am to make all this melt away.
Okay, so I think there's a ton of subtext in this conversation that I am not aware of. It looks as though for her, Olivia, I always have to look at my family tree because there's so many names. It looks as though Olivia is hearing the pushback from the mom and the dad as we do not approve. We don't want Isaac to go to your house because we don't approve of you. We're not just kind of worried about Isaac. We don't approve of you. We think you are a sinner. We think you are worldly. We think you are the devil. We think you are against our family. I don't know if they would go that far with it, but something in that direction maybe, and maybe that's what Olivia has heard before, or at least has intimated, and that's what she's reacting against, and that's maybe why she's hurt and then angry and hostile and has sort of an agenda here. I don't know. I really, as a family therapist, I would really want to ask that question of just like, okay, Olivia just seemed to say something like, you parents think that she is like a terrible influence on the family, and that she might actually just be independently tainted or evil or dark in some way. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's possible that they might actually believe that. It wouldn't be unheard of in what I believe to be a fundamentalist Christian family. They haven't talked about their religion very much, but anyway, let's see how this conversation goes.
I'm willing to work on it, but I mean, I can't change the essence of who I am.
Everything that was being said, I just wished so bad that I could leave.
When there's trust, it's easy for a healthy relationship. Where there's distrust, there's never going to be a healthy relationship.
Okay, so again, you see Olivia going head to head with the mom. In some ways, Olivia almost seems above the mom. And she's the one dictating and explaining and saying, look, everything is based on trust. And so you have to trust me with your family members coming to my house because I'm not doing anything bad. And just look at everyone else in this circle. You have Ethan, you have the dad, the people who aren't talking. You have the older, the three sons in the family are all there. You have Lydia and Mariah, right? I think that's Lydia right there. And so everyone else isn't saying anything. Now, they edited this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they showed us this whole thing, that it was mainly Olivia talking and a little bit of mom talking and then a little bit of dad talking, and everyone else was just like, oh, what's happening right now? So what does that tell us about the family structure? Well, it's possible that the family actually needs someone to come in and oppose the mom. One of the interesting ways of looking at family systems, as I've been saying before in other episodes, is that it's sometimes useful to look at them as a whole, and unconsciously the whole understands that they have needs, and they will do things as a whole unconsciously to change the system such that they can shift and change for the betterment of everybody. So one way of looking at it, and there's no way to confirm this scientifically, it just has to be a model as to how you look at a family, but I could imagine this being accurate for them, or a helpful model, is that because the mom went through so much trauma growing up, that she swung all the way over here and had a very, very particular lifestyle. And it was wonderful for the family and the kids as the kids were growing up. But now the kids are getting to that age where they're old enough, and the parents, I think, want to respect the individuality of the older kids, such that the older kids are now having to step outside of that very controlled environment. And the mom is like, no, I do not want that. But of course the kids are saying, but we're older now, we can do that, and we want your blessing. We still want a relationship with you. We don't want to have conflict to have a Coca-Cola or something, And so Olivia enters the family, and the family as a whole, including the mom, wants Olivia to help with the transition of the older kids by being that sort of segue between the family farm and the rest of the world. And the family, including the mom, wants Olivia to emotionally push back on the mom because no one else knows how to push back on the mom. No one else feels comfortable with it, including the dad. It's just a hypothesis. And so everyone in the family is hoping that Olivia and the mom will come to some balance, and that everyone will transition to the next phase of the family organization such that the younger kids can still be insular and live the life that the older kids lived when they were young. But the older kids now have a little bit more options while staying in contact with the mom. Because the mom is basically saying at this point, if you venture off in the world, we're done, essentially. Or at least there's going to be tension. There's going to be bad things that are going to happen between our relationship. And so the family might want Olivia to come in and say, let's be a little bit more flexible there, because we want to retain our relationship with the parents as we make this transition, and that's Olivia's job to be the ambassador of that message. So, it's just a way of looking at families, but as a family therapist, sometimes it's helpful to see it that way as a therapist as I'm treating people. And sometimes it's helpful to tell a family that, which I do as a therapist. I'll tell families, if I think it's helpful, I'll tell them this so that everyone can understand, oh, so it's not that Olivia is this evil presence in the family. Oh, it's not that mom is being a rigid stick in the mud. It's bigger than that. There's more important things. Oh, the family's going through a transition period. That's not how I felt about it, but that makes sense. And so it helps people to frame what's happening and have less anxiety. And it gives them an opportunity to have a more objective view on what's happening instead of being inundated and flooded with your own emotions. But anyway, let's see what happens.
My biggest problem is I just don't deal with it. So then it makes it harder for me to help her. And
Yeah,
that's
because then I
kind of
just sit
where-
and like spill it all for a long time, and you just sit there like.
Okay, so we're hearing a little bit more about their dynamic. Ethan, and I suspected this, is a pretty passive person. Where did he get that from? I'm guessing from an early age he was like that. I'm really curious what Hosanna was like. Ethan is the oldest, right? And Hosanna is the second oldest. She's not on the show yet, and she is in another state. And I wonder what her role was in the family, because we've seen a little bit about what Micah is like, but not a lot. We've definitely seen Mariah and Lydia, but I'm wondering how they all fit together, and I wonder why Ethan has such a passive, easygoing attitude about things. There's pros and cons to that, right? The pro is that you're very pleasant and you seem content most of the time. The con is that you don't advocate for your needs, and when Olivia might want you to support her, you're not doing anything. But they seem to be dealing with it okay, so let's see what happens.
Well, I want to work on the relationship. I want to make this better. There's a lot of crap that's in here, but this is my major one way. Trusting us to spend time with Ethan's siblings.
This was somewhat of a blindside attempt in the group setting to sway opinions.
Ethan and Olivia weren't asking us if Isaac could be in the band. They were telling us.
Right. So that's probably not going to go over very well. If I was to strategize with Olivia, I wouldn't recommend that strategy. Again, I would recommend that she bond with the mom more and then move from there, because if the mom and Olivia like each other and trust each other, have an open line of communication, are able to negotiate well, then things are more likely to, even as the family changes, there's going to be a lot less tension. But instead, Olivia is like, look, there's only one way this is going to happen. You're going to do what I want, which is to let, Isaac, I don't know how old Isaac is, but he's somewhere in between Lydia and Amber. So I don't know, he looks maybe like he's 12 or something. And I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty tall order, right? For a 12-year-old or middle school age kid to leave the farm and go to a place where there's alcohol in the house and there's Coca-Cola in the fridge, and that's a big ask for the mom. Instead of working with them, because maybe the mom would be more comfortable if she felt like Olivia was more on her side. If she feels like Olivia is not on her side, then that's going to make her even less likely to agree to Isaac going over there.
Just say that's good for tonight,
Yeah.
and then pick up later or something.
How about we do Sunday night, just us four with the sound equipment, and then during the next week we can talk about Isaac.
That sounds
Because
good.
it's probably going to need some time to work.
Yeah.
And I still think that there's issues that you and I need to talk through.
So that's good. So Kim is saying, I still want to have a conversation with you. Now, I don't know what Kim exactly is saying there. I would hope that she's saying, let's talk and bond and try to make some negotiations. I'm willing to let the kids go over there, but we have to have some ground rules because, they're still young kids under my responsibility. I'm guessing, or I'm hoping that's what she is talking about. Maybe it's something different. Maybe Kim is saying, we're going to have a conversation and you are going to understand that you're below me, or I don't know, some sort of power trip. Maybe we'll find out.
We'll just do what we can Sunday night, and then we'll come back and ask for Isaac again.
Mom's always been used to just being able to be in control of everything, and then with Olivia, she's like losing control.
Anyways, we should go before everything closes and go on our date, but...
So again, it seems like Olivia is wanting to move really fast, and she does seem to have somewhat of, it seems personal to her that she win over the mom, over Kim. And, you know, she's saying, well, I want our band to be together, and I need Isaac to come to my house so we can practice our band things. But it seems like there's definitely much more emotional baggage that she's working out with Kim in this moment that is way beyond the Isaac being a drummer issue. And that's what I would want to have them talk about, to air those grievances, apologize to each other. I think it's quite possible that Kim should apologize to Olivia for maybe things that happened in the past, and maybe that would help. If you didn't know this, we actually have a podcast where it's audio only, and I've been doing that for 12 years, and so we have over 1,000 episodes where I go into much more depth on the things that I touch on in these videos. You can go to a podcast app on your phone and subscribe to Psychology in Seattle and get updated episodes. We put out 4 a week, and so there's a lot of content out there if you're interested, but if you're not, no big deal. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.